Hi, I'm Eala, and these are 3 things you don't know about me. The first is I don't know how to ride a bike. Second, I love watching sitcoms like Friends or Modern Family. And third is that I suck at every other sport that's not tennis.
She was just finishing a training session when the message came through. Rafa wants to see you. No explanation, no context, just that. She had no idea what it was about. A conversation about her schedule, her performance, her future at the academy. She walked toward that room running through every possibility, and none of the ones she came up with were close to what was actually waiting for her inside. What happened in that room is the part of this story most people haven't heard. And to understand why it hit the way it did, you have to start several years earlier, with a 14-year-old who made a decision that most people wouldn't make at twice that age. At 14, Eala left the Philippines and moved thousands of miles away to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. On paper, it sounds like the obvious move for a young player with serious ambitions. In practice, it was one of the most isolating decisions a teenager can make. New country, new language, new environment, no family nearby, no familiar faces in the stands. The Philippines isn't known for producing tennis players, limited infrastructure, few courts, almost no established pathway to the professional level. That meant she wasn't just learning how to compete at an elite level. She was doing it without the support system that most players at that level take for granted. What people don't see in stories like this is what happens after the initial excitement fades. The quiet nights in a room that doesn't feel like home. The holidays where most of the other players left, and the academy got quieter. The birthdays on video calls, the wins without anyone familiar to celebrate with, and the losses without anyone familiar to lean on. That kind of isolation accumulates in ways that are hard to describe from the outside. For a stretch, it genuinely looked like it might be too much. There were moments where the progress didn't match the effort, where injuries slowed everything down, where the gap between where she was and where she needed to be felt impossible to close. Quitting didn't sound irrational during those periods. It sounded like the honest option. She pushed through anyway, but it wasn't clean or easy. It was grinding, daily, unglamorous work in a place that still didn't fully feel like it belonged to her. And then, in 2022, something shifted. She won the US Open Junior Championship, becoming the first Filipina to do it, standing on one of the most competitive junior stages in the sport and winning it under pressure, in tight moments, the way future champions do. From the outside, it looked like the breakthrough everyone had been waiting for. It was. But it also came with a new kind of weight, because now she wasn't just chasing the dream, she was expected to carry it forward. For an entire country that had never had someone at this level before, that pressure doesn't release after a win, it often intensifies. What most people didn't know was that someone had been watching all of it, not just the results, but the details underneath them. Rafael Nadal had noticed Eala early, and not for the reasons the media usually pays attention to. It wasn't rankings or headlines. It was the way she showed up on the days that didn't matter for anyone else. Long training sessions when the coaches weren't circling. The same intensity on a Tuesday afternoon drill as in a high-stakes practice set. The way she reacted after losing a point. Not with frustration that lingered, but with a reset and a move forward. Discipline like that is noticeable at an elite academy because it isn't actually common, even at that level. Talent is everywhere. Consistency when no one's watching is rarer. He also saw something more personal in her story. Before Nadal became one of the greatest players ever, Spain wasn't the tennis powerhouse it is today. He built his way up against expectations, fighting for recognition in a sport where certain players from certain countries were handed opportunities that others had to create themselves. That struggle wasn't identical to what Eala was going through, but it rhymed, so he started paying attention in quiet ways. A few words after a difficult session, a check-in after a tough result, sometimes just a look that communicated, without saying anything, that he'd seen what she had just done. For a young player thousands of miles from home, those moments registered differently than they might somewhere else. Over time, he did more than observe. He made sure she didn't feel like just another athlete moving through the system. Family dinners during the periods when the academy felt emptiest. Real conversations, not just about tennis, but about how she was actually doing. The kind of presence that turns a training facility from a place you work into a place where you feel like you belong. That shift happened gradually, and Alex likely didn't fully clock how much it was changing things. But it was building towards something. The day the message came, she had no idea how much things were about to change. When she walked into the room, Nadal was already there. Senior staff as well. A camera crew stood quietly in the corner, which told her this wasn't a standard meeting. But she still couldn't read where it was going. He started by talking about when he first noticed her. Her growth, her mindset, the person she'd become beyond the results. As he spoke, she could feel the emotion building, but she still didn't know what was coming. Then he told her. The academy had been her second home for years. He wanted to make that permanent. Not as a student rotating through a program, not as a guest. A private residence at the academy, lifetime access to training facilities, a long-term role helping to develop the next generation of players. For a moment, the room went completely quiet. She couldn't process it. This wasn't a bonus or a contract extension. This was security, the kind that doesn't depend on your ranking, your results, or whether a sponsor decides to renew. A foundation that stays in place regardless of what happens on the court. When it hit her, the tears came without any control. Not from sadness, from the full weight of everything she had been carrying for years releasing at once. She hugged Nadal, and for a while she couldn't even form words, because what do you say in that moment? The reaction online was immediate and, predictably, divided. A lot of people saw exactly what it was. A genuine act of long-term investment in a player who had earned it through years of quiet, consistent work. Others weren't as straightforward about it. Some questioned the fairness. What about the other players training with equal dedication who hadn't received anything like this? Wasn't this just favoritism with an emotional story wrapped around it? A few voices went further, raising a counterintuitive concern that this kind of security might actually work against her, that top athletes are often driven by the fear of losing everything, and that removing that fear removes the hunger. Nadal addressed the criticism simply. He didn't make the decision based on what people would say. He made it based on what he believed was right. That response mattered because it shifted the conversation from whether she deserved it to what this kind of support actually does. For most young athletes from countries without strong tennis infrastructure, the career is fragile in ways that never fully go away. One serious injury, one bad season, one sponsor who doesn't renew, and the whole thing can collapse before it ever reaches its potential. That fragility creates a specific kind of pressure that never fully leaves. Players make decisions based on fear as much as ambition. They play it safer than they should, or they take risks they shouldn't, because the stakes around every result feel enormous. What Nadal gave Eala was the thing that removes that specific pressure. Stability, a base that doesn't depend on a winning streak. And what stability does to an athlete's performance is well documented. You play differently when you're not afraid of the floor disappearing underneath you. You take better risks. You focus more clearly. You allow yourself to develop over time, rather than needing results immediately. Beyond her individual situation, this moment said something to every young player watching from a country where tennis doesn't have a strong system behind it. It said the path doesn't have to follow the same route it always has. That talent from anywhere can find the support it needs, if the right people decide to actually invest, rather than just observe. That's a different kind of statement than a title or a sponsorship. Titles belong to the moment. This belongs to the future. Alex Eala walked into that room not knowing what was waiting for her. She walked out with something that changes the conditions of her entire career and set an example of what it looks like when someone in a position of influence actually uses it. The tennis world took notice. The question now is whether anyone else follows. Do you think this kind of long-term investment is what the sport needs more of? Or does it create more problems than it solves? Drop your thoughts below. Subscribe for more stories about the moments in sports that matter beyond the scoreboard.